the Smart Couple Podcast, where we teach you how to fight well, master communication, and take your marriage to the next level without compromising your business, your family, or most importantly, your integrity. All right, welcome to the Smart Couple Podcast. Today, I'm really grateful to be having my good friend Christiane Pelmas with us. Christiane is a healer, a therapist, a coach, transformer of conflict and challenge in between people, and she is a real gift when it comes to helping people navigate the hardest moments in their lives as it pertains to partnering and also sexuality. And Christiane, I'm just very thrilled to have you here, so welcome.
Thank you, Jayson. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, right on. Okay, so Christiane, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into working with couples and sexuality? Give us kind of the short road and story as to how you arrived here.
It's super easy, Jayson. I'm a shadow junkie. So I love the deepest waters of sort of the oh shitness of our experience, our human experience, where we could easily take a lesser intense road to smooth the waters. And when we do that, we miss so much. Mm-hmm. So because of all of the confluence of my family of origin and how I was raised there and how I was oriented into the world, I really became someone who always went for the real underbelly and really find myself most at home and most alive in the places that are just shy of almost unbearably uncomfortable. And sometimes unbearably uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what I love about you.
Yeah, it's so that's really what has me loving the environment of partnership, because certainly in this culture at this time, we're fairly lost, and a lot of what is our biggest medicine turns into our greatest conflict. And we don't have really any, we have very little guidance internally and just in our communities, that informal guidance that would help us out of that. And then you can take that and magnify it or multiply it by maybe 100, and you get what happens to us in our partnership, in our sex, where everything is so foundational and it is painful or shameful or exhilarating to the core of us. So that's just where I like to hang out. That's where I feel most alive and most happy and most used.
Nice. So say more about that thing you just said a minute ago. Our biggest medicine is often turns into our biggest conflict. Can you unpack that a little more?
Yeah, really, depending on what you believe about what we're here to do in our partnerships. If you believe what the culture teaches us, that our partnerships are really for turning inward and getting comfy and kind of keeping the horrors and the difficulty of the world at bay. If you believe that kind of 50s thing that we're taught, that here we are, the Ward and June Cleaver, and we're just going to have our little four walls and our happy homeostasis, then you're not going to believe anything I'm about to say. But, most indigenous cultures and depth psychology and the world of soul awareness all believe that we're actually here in partnership to serve each other into our greater and greater and greater goodness in the world, like our greater delivery of what we're here to do in the world. And that in our intimate partnerships, we have the capacity to see each other in a way that no one else does. Even our closest friends, even our coaches and our therapists can't see us the way the person we wake up with every morning does, and the person we have orgasms with, and the person we just are, so desperately needing to get us in those moments of, I can't believe you can't get me here. That person, if they are actually holding out for our greatness, like I saw you and I see you and I'm holding out over here for that thing, that part of you, then the differences we come to the relationship with are our greatest gifts to each other. So
Right.
not our similarities, but our differences. And because we don't have any training around that, and because a lot of us have a hard time with selfhood, with self-worth, and a sense of autonomy over here, like, I think I know who I am and I'm good with that. Because of all of those things and a few more things, your differences become really intolerable to me, and I'm going to orient around flattening them out and making you more like me. That's going to make me more comfortable.
Right, but ultimately you're saying that also creates more conflict, right?
It absolutely becomes the point of conflict, because you can't become more like me. You're going to resent the shit out of me if I do that to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. So back to the medicine metaphor. So then if I say yes to conflict, then I have this amazing elixir to kind of transmute some of those challenges I'm having, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And see myself more clearly.
See myself more clearly, because the paradox here is so sexy. It's that in your otherness, you over there being, wow, Jayson, you are so other than me. Like, you're a man and you're Jayson and you're other than me. I have an opportunity to see more, to be aware more of myself, because you are very other than me. You know, yeah.
You talk about, say more about this, because you talk about one of your two big talking points that I've heard you talk about is helping people understand erotic intelligence and embracing diversity. And I think what you're talking about here is embracing diversity. Is that right?
Yeah, and actually diversity is the core of erotic intelligence, because without other, there can be no relationship. Relationship is the coming together of two distinct and diverse entities who hold on to their autonomy so that they can best each other. It's martial arts at its greatest. So bring me back into how that.
So if I embrace if you and I are dating and we're in a long-term partnership, and I embrace the diversity in you, that you're way different than me, chances are I'm going to have a better time in our partnership, right? But if I, like you said, squash and diminish and want you to be like me, and I want us to both be this happy little couple where everything's all cozy and warm and fuzzy, I'm going to suffer, and I'm going to create a lot of fights for us.
Yeah, absolutely. But what that requires is work. We have to be working on ourselves. We have to be continually navigating and developing our sense of self. We have to be pretty resilient there and pretty dedicated there, actually.
What happens if one partner's not doing that work?
Well, it's not a done deal. It's not dead in the water. But in fact, most often when couples come to me, they come to me because one of them has received some sort of fortification. I'm like, whoa, there's something here we're not doing. Let's do it. And the other one is probably like, what? You know, you're upsetting this fabulous, but kind of flatlined and not so exciting boat that we've got going. So it often happens that one of us in the partnership is saddled with the great responsibility to bring new aliveness and a new paradigm to the partnership. And that's a crossroads. I mean, we both see it every day. It's a crossroads when it can be the most beautiful invitation. And it can also be a time when the couple, can't do it. As a couple, they're not both in alignment there.
Yeah.
So
can you talk about it, maybe a time in your life where this happened, where there was a big crossroads, either in a marriage or a relationship you had?
Yeah, I've had a couple of them, because I've had two marriages, and they were beautiful and incredible teaching relationships, both of them, and very, very different in the way they ended. So the first one was the fabulous first marriage where we were young, and this man is the father of my children, and we're partners to, the ends of this lifetime and probably into the next one. Dear, dear friends. And in that relationship, we really served each other. We both grew into very different people, and we served each other into that differentness. And continue to this day. And there came a time when we were able to stand, and it didn't look quite this peaceful, I can tell you. In the moment, it was heartbreaking. But essentially what happened is we ended up growing into people who weren't intimate partners anymore. They were phenomenal friends. And, as we stood at, this was 12 years ago, staring at each other, realizing, oh, you're like a brother. Oh, you're like a sister. Oh, that's what we're up to here.
Wait. So how many years was this before you kind of both started to, or one of you started to kind of see this or feel that?
Or actually 12 total, including courtship.
Okay, and then how many years was it? So are you saying it was 12 years, and then at 12 years, one of you was like, wait, you're more like my brother or sister here?
Well, it was a slow transition into, something different is happening here. We're not wanting the same things, but continuing to encourage each other to grow. That was really our medicine, like pushing at each other to learn new languages and learn new things about what we're here to do in the world. And we started out young. We were 27 and 25 when we got together, and we're having kids then.
Yeah,
So really young.
Yep.
So really growing each other up in that way that we do when we get together and we're young, and we're in this culture where family is not an intricate part of our growing up. You know, they sort of kick you out and off you go. So really parenting each other in some ways, although we never would have had language for that, but that's really what we were doing. And then we got to a certain point where we were really ready to step into the next phase of our lives and realized, wow, we're not like if we continue to stay in this relationship, we're going to continually battle being loving and loving each other. Yeah. That our right relationship, First Nations people have a beautiful way of doing this concept of right relationship. In our culture, we assume that divorce is a failure, and that's just not true. It's just, we are constantly organically shifting relationship with each other in an ecosystem that has lots of input if we're living vitally in the world. So if I understand you, in this first marriage of yours, are you saying you both sort of were willingly and openly talking about this? Because that's not how I imagine it goes down a lot in the couples like we work with. Sometimes it's kind of nasty, or there's a lot of blame happening, and it sounds, the way you're describing this sounds pretty respectful and mutually amicable, and hey, yeah, we're agreeing that we're kind of growing apart, so let's do something about it. Yeah, the one thing that feels really important to say here, and I work with this, just had a conversation with a client yesterday about this, that yes to all of that, and there was huge heartbreak. So there's a both and. Okay. Huge heartbreak, and it's in our nature to fight change of this magnitude. It's in our nature. A parent dies, or a child dies, or a dear friend dies, and it's in our nature to fight it. And at the same time, we can also embrace it, and at the same time, it can also be right. So yes to the, wow, this isn't working. What we love each other dearly. What is going to allow us to continue to love each other and parent these kids? That's our prime responsibility at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not going to be staying under the same roof. It's going to be moving to separate roofs and redefining the relationship and staying awake and aware to what that looks like and staying very intimately attached.
It sounds so mature to me.
It was pretty extraordinary. It's not typical, and it's not. My second marriage went down, but they each had different medicine. So yeah, so that with the 3 a.m. on the kitchen floor, bawling my eyes out, and him too, and like, isn't there some way we can avoid this? Can we just not have this happen? This is so heartbreaking, and continually circling back around and getting in front of each other and realizing, shit, this is right. It's right. This evolution is right.
Was there any part of you that you talked about the social stigma of divorce? Was there any part of you back then that was like, oh, actually, I don't want to get it divorced because then I'll be seen a certain way? Were you secure enough in yourself to not really care, or was that a pretty vulnerable spot for you at the time?
It was a really vulnerable spot, Jayson, because including our parents and most of our community, we were the darling children because we had a phenomenal marriage. We actually loved and respected each other. When we were all at we'd be at parties, and other couples would be kind of underhandedly jabbing each other, like, she doesn't let me, the wife doesn't let me do this, and
the ball and chain or whatever.
This beautiful man would be over there in the corner talking about how extraordinary I was and how much he just loved me, and then he'd be making jokes with me, and we'd be laughing from across the room. So people would look at us and think, holy, they have a marriage that is so phenomenal. And we did. So
sounds like it.
We got a lot of projection. We got a lot of, how dare you? We actually got hate mail. And parents didn't talk to us for a while, couldn't stand, the idea of entertaining that this was going to be happening. It was, we need to know that partnering is possible. And when something like that goes down, that's a big deal in the community.
Absolutely. And to me, this is an example of a smart couple. You two were a smart couple because you were willing to be true to yourselves and go against the community field, which was telling you like, no, stay together because you guys are like, we're projecting all over you and everything's perfect over there and how dare you.
Yeah.
So to me, the smart couple is a couple who's willing, again, to just piss people off, right? Mm-hmm. And including get divorced. That's very smart sometimes.
Yeah. It was absolutely smart for us, and it was smart for our kids. Our kids are 20 and 17 now, and we both me and their dad and I have a lot of like, oh God, we made you live in separate homes, and that sucks. There's no way to get around that. Right. And they look at us and they say, hey, Mom, Dad, it was cool. We actually like you better here. We have a good time with you. Yeah. So it's a lot.
Okay, and now say something about the second divorce. You talked about how that was really different.
That was, and I'll really just speak because that's fairly recent. I'll speak from my viewpoint because the unfolding of it and the harvesting of it continues to happen. It happens for years, probably lifetime. But in my case, we've been divorced for a little less than a year and in separate households for a year and 2 months about. And for me, that was really about going back and doing the work of healing a very original wound. So, so that there was a lot of tumult. There was addiction. There was a lot of real deep, like what I like to call old world love. Real masculine, feminine, real when everything was aligned and we were in our wholeness, extraordinary power, real like king and queen power, and real beauty there. And again, a lot of the community kind of looking in on it and saying, wow, that's a pretty profound partnership. And in its wholeness, it was. But for me, the process really was of this man delivering the opportunity to do some original, early work of what it means to be loved and what love looks like, and safety and early, what in our language we call early attachment stuff. And that was his gift, and that gift happened, and it was time for us to go time for us to go away from each other. Because we really got to a point where actually we were going to do damage. We were going to start to do damage, more damage than good.
Okay, say something about that for couples out there who sometimes in a community like that's going to listen to this podcast, there may be some people who are on a spiritual path or work on themselves a lot, and we can hear the language of, oh no, you got to stay in it to work out your stuff with yourself and just work out your wounds, and you just stay in it no matter how hard it is. But I hear you saying, no, that actually can do more damage. So will you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, you both. We'll circle back around here to one of your original questions about what if only one person is able or willing to do the work, and that's kind of dicey in this case. Out of respect, I don't want to just level it down to that. But you both have to be on the same page about what the work looks like. Mm-hmm. Like you have to have some shared reality about how much you're willing to dismember yourselves. The work looks like a lot of dismembering. It looks like a lot of, going into the cocoon and just you turning into goo and trusting that you're going to come out more whole. And if you're not in agreement there, you're probably going to spend most of your time trying to get in agreement and not doing the work. And that's when the damage happens. You're just going to get at each other there. And that's when the greatest gift you can give to each other is actually letting each other go, so that you each can come back into some sense of me-ness, autonomy, and take stock, and then move on from there.
Okay, so this is a good little subtle distinction there, which I haven't quite thought about, but what I notice is, and I liked how you phrased it because I heard you say, if you're not in agreement, you'll spend a lot of time trying to get in agreement, and that's where the frustration has happens, because I see like one partner, for example, is like, come on, let's get an agreement here. And I've got a language, I've got a map here. This is going to be awesome. And the other partner, for whatever reason, isn't totally there. And then that partner ends up feeling judged. And the other partner, is feeling like totally resentful because that partner won't come along. And come on, you just need to just do this thing. And again, there's some resistance. And because the work can't happen because they're not on the same page yet, they end up struggling about getting on the same page. So I really liked how you said that. It makes sense to me.
And you can spend actually an entire lifetime right there. As you know, as we both know, you could spend an entire lifetime right there and think you're actually working. Totally.
And a lot of people they'll go to counseling actually for a year or two, and that's the issue they're still working on.
Yeah. Exactly.
And couples will come in and see me, and I sniff that one out immediately, and I'm like, well, it sounds like you're not on the same page, and until you do, we're not going to the next level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, wow. All right, so sexuality, like talk to us about why this is such a, I mean, I can have my own guesses here, but I'd love to hear your take on why is this a thrilling place for you? And say something also about this erotic intelligence you're talking about.
Okay, so why is the arena or field or landscape of sex and sexuality and physical intimacy so thrilling for me?
Yeah.
So I do that first?
Yeah.
Well, because I love sex, because sex is how we got here. It's how it all got here. It's how those doors behind you got here. It's how that fabulous microphone got here. It's all nature, it's all natural, and it all gets here through some manner of this connection that happens in our sex, in the polarity of sex. So that's pretty thrilling to me, that I'm imagining that what we get up to when we have sex is some version of how the universe got here. And wow, that's exciting, Yeah. It can be a quickie on the kitchen table, or it can be something that you're paying for in a back alley, and it can be as disembodied and traumatic and hurtful and exhilarating, ecstatic, and wow, I just found myself here. Huge. And that's a turn on to me. That's wow. I want to get right there, and I want to know about that.
Yeah, it seems like you do that. You help people, from my understanding, help people find themselves through sex.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Find deeper ways to have experiences of themselves and the other as other, regardless of orientation, regardless of what the physical body looks like. That to me is one of the primary ways we as human beings grow, is knowing ourselves on the front lines of that. So
absolutely.
So that's, and also as the rebel, which I absolutely am, I am really determined to be one of the many amazing folks out there who are undermining the shaming and the truncation and the castration and the homogeneity that our culture is really assaulting on the world of sexuality and physical intimacy and erotic intelligence.
Right on. And I just want to kind of rephrase that you already are that to me. You said, I want to be that. I'm like, dude, you're already living that.
Yeah. I'm excited about being that and continuing to be that.
Yeah. Truncation. And you've also talked about neutering ourselves and homogenizing ourselves, and keep going.
Well, so my business is called ReWilding. One of them is called ReWilding, and I mean it. And it doesn't look like turning into this chaotic, out of relationship, wild-eyed,
disconnected, dissociated person, right?
Actually looks like being the most present, the most concerned, the most connected, and most aware, because that's in fact what it means to be wild. You got to watch out for things, and you have to be in relationship as a wild being, because your survival depends on your awareness and your presence and your sense of yourself and your sense of other. So,
oh yeah, wow, nice. Yep.
Absolutely. And that's why I also use the stallion metaphor, because the equines have so much similarity. Horses have so much similarity in the way that they operate socially and how they concern themselves with each other to us, as we do, as humans do. And the stallion is so woefully misunderstood in this culture in particular. The stallion is thought to be dangerous, thought to have one purpose only, thought to be single-minded and only wants to do this one thing. And in fact, if you spend 15 seconds watching stallions in the wild and watching their counterparts, the mares and the fillies, you will see a whole different creature, and you'll likely start crying because of the way that we've miscalculated and mislabeled and misattributed your beautiful gender. So rewilding, coming back into relationship with relationship is it's necessary. It's primary. It's our primary focus.
And if I'm rewilding myself, chances are my sex life and my relationship life is going to be better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what the hell happened to us? Like we get in this relationship. Usually people have pretty juicy sex initially.
Yeah, it's all
it's pretty hot and steamy and feels good. And then something happens in terms of monogamy and long-term partnership. The rails come off the tracks and we start to get homogenized, neutered, truncated, etc. Like, what the fuck's going on? What happens?
Yeah, first of all, everything that happens in the first, in that period that poly folks like to call new relationship energy, which is just entirely chemistry. It's the porn phase of our relationship, because it's all about chemistry. We're just jacked up on other,
Yeah.
Everything about you is hot. You could, I have no discernment in that moment, in that period of time. It's just like, wow, you're so new. You think I'm so great. I love this that you think I'm so great. All of a sudden I feel great about myself. And
yeah, win-win, baby.
So great. Yeah, and then we actually come to the period where the chemistry starts to die down, because there's a sense there, our physiology is registering, oh, normalcy. That guy, I know that guy. So I'm not producing the chemistry anymore. And that's where we actually have to turn into the relational beings that we are designed to be. And if we don't know how to do that, which
most of us don't,
then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what happened? You're totally disappointing me. You said you were this guy. You thought you used to love me. You used to think I was so hot, And
now you're annoying me.
Come on. Right. So much happens there. And that's when the really thrilling stuff starts to take place. And that's when the really thrilling sex can start to take place. When you're getting out of the way of, when the chemistry is no longer there, and you're actually having to rely on the chemistry that gets produced through deep connection, risk taking, and emotional intimacy and vulnerability.
Yeah.
That's when the real relationship, that's when the tracks start to get laid.
And it seems like to me, maybe a smaller percentage of people make it to even that stage.
Yeah.
Because they start to struggle and they think, oh, there's a problem here, and they want to get back to the honeymoon or back to the feel-good dopamine phase, and they keep trying to return to that, and they're not willing to, like you said, learn relationship.
Yeah.
So they, at a certain point, make themselves or their partner wrong, and they're like, okay, I guess this isn't meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they're missing out on this thing you're talking about.
Totally. They're totally missing out on it. And in our culture, thanks to the consumer culture we have, where, with Amazon Prime, you can get whatever you need yesterday. We can just order we can order the accoutrement of the new relationship energy over and over again. We can order some porn, we can get some handcuffs, we can do some stuff in the bedroom that we're told really intelligent modern couples do. They do this kink stuff, and we can keep trying to boost that chemistry.
Because we're trying to get the dopamine hits.
Yeah, right. Because we don't know what else we have in our toolkit. No one ever told us. And we also are told really categorically that if it's uncomfortable, something's wrong.
Absolutely.
And that's probably the biggest fallacy, the biggest and most catastrophic message we're given, that if we're not happy, something's wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree. The fantasy that we're sold, that we're supposed to feel good all the time, and be happy consistently with one person over time is absurd, and it's deeply damaging.
Yeah, yes,
right. It really fucks people up.
It really does. It really does. And some of our most incredible moments in partnership come in just simply the calm that happens after deep discord.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the calm that happens after intelligent repair, after deep discord, is extraordinary. And the attachment that's weaving itself in that calm time is profound. That's what makes profound partnership.
Yes, I'm with you. Yeah, so if couples can commit to, and again, both parties in my world can commit to, okay, we're in a stuck spot, we're in the shitter, we're kind of trying to go back to a happy place. There's probably more to the story. We might listen to a podcast from you or read a blog post, and we're like, oh, there's another way, right? So how do you guide people? Like, what's the next step for them if they, let's say, are all of a sudden awakening and on board, and they're like, okay, let's go. How do we do this?
Yeah. Okay. What's the next step? I'm just trying to dial in kind of a particular avatar so we can get specific here and not just theoretical. Probably the most important tool, or one of the most important tools, like the immediately on the ground effective plug it in tool, is teaching couples how to feel the attachment that happens even in the arguments. Feel what's possible, the leaning in, the generosity of spirit. Help teach them how to do that. Literally, like, you're at a crossroads. You can go over here and sit over here in this kind of like, God, Jayson is so wrong. What the hell is wrong with him? Or you can take the left road and you can have generosity of spirit. Wow, I totally can't understand Jayson right now, but I love him. So if I love him and I don't understand him, what do I do next? Well, right there, I've gotten closer to you.
Absolutely.
Right there, I've leaned in. Right there, I have curiosity, and that's a pretty big choice point. So that allows just to teach couples that, like, you actually have a choice here.
I mean, that alone is huge, right? Just the kind of mindset. I'm hearing kind of an open mindset to be like, oh, I'm curious that there's something else going on here, and I respect and love my partner, even though I kind of hate them in this moment. Yeah. I'm going to figure out what's going on here. Yeah.
Yeah, I was sitting with a couple yesterday or 2 days ago, and it was so dear because I was, they're working so beautifully hard, and they're really, they get stuck at that choice point. They still go into the wound where they really want to be right. Oh, I want to be right, and I want her to know I'm right, and I want him to say, oh, babe, you're right, versus like, whoa, okay, we're just different here. And it was so beautiful because I was, it's so clear to me, and I let them know that, like, probably if you keep doing this, if you keep working this, and you keep working and staying in this course, a course of action, you're going to get to a point where you could probably even stand across from each other and say, wow, you are such an asshole in this moment, and I totally love you, and what's going on? Like, there's great tensile strength there in the arguing, to argue not cleanly and not, wow, I really notice a difference in you and I'm feeling really over here. And like, we can get dirty even if we have generosity of spirit.
That seems like one of the kind of principles you work with. Is this what you're talking about, generosity of spirit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, because there actually has to be a fair amount of grit. There has to be a fair amount of and a fair amount of like, oh,
I have a little fight in you.
Oh, I want to hurt you right now. And wow, okay, I'm going to stay in.
Yeah, you got to be scrappy. Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually adds to the chemistry that we're so desperate for, because then that couple that's actually repaired, it's not just jumping in the sack and having makeup sex, but the couple that's actually come back into attachment and connection and then goes to bed, that sex is hot. And that sex generates newness, and new things happen there. Two new people are making love or fucking or whatever they're doing.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and if I'm, again, a couple out there who is a little stuck and I'm listening to this, maybe it sounds like a big jump for me. Like, how do I, or scary or uncomfortable or unknown, how do I even get started?
Yeah, it's interesting because here's where I want to say it's actually hard work.
Mm-hmm.
It actually takes determination. And the determination lives right at that choice point between the right-hand turn I know so well of, I'm going to just go into my wound and you're going to have to come over to me and make it better over here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to budge. I'm not going to be curious about you because I'm so much in my wound. That moment right there where you could also just actually, frankly, get over yourself. Like, do something different here.
Yep.
And take a big risk to know your own wholeness. Like, you've got something to give away here. You're not so bankrupt over here emotionally that you don't have anything to give away. You've always got things you can offer. So that choice point where, whoa, we're messed up here. Something happened. I'm pissed off with you and I don't even want to be with you anymore. And
yeah, wow, I gotta interrupt you and say, like, while you were saying that, I felt so impacted because I feel loved by you. If I'm that couple or if I'm that person, I feel cared about because you're holding my feet to the fire and saying, kind of get over yourself. Hold on, you're not bankrupt. You're so much bigger and better than this.
Yeah.
I felt like there's like some tough love happening here, and I feel it, and it feels good. And so many people are missing that, right? They go to counseling or they go get some help, and they get people that collude with their story, and they're like, oh, yeah, that's so hard, honey. And I'm kind of hearing you like come in with a totally different energy there, which people really need.
Yeah. It's not for everyone. We know that.
I hear you. And so many of us grew up with, again, these days especially, there's a lot of permissive parents, especially in more progressive scenes. There's like, oh, it's okay, like boundaryless, and there's, I don't know, there's such safety I feel with you. It's one of the reasons I love you is because there's some boundaries for the stallion or whatever. It's not just this vast wild space where I can run all over the place and kind of stomp and run my shit. Like, that's the dissociated kind of person we're talking about. The person that's actually present, gives a shit, and is willing to hold and contain and also, express. So I don't know. I'm just loving what you're saying.
It's so beautiful because one thing I want to say about that just the stallion who gets to run all over and run his shit. No, and you as a stallion need us as mares, we're going to go with this analogy, to hold you in line, to know that in order for you to be in your fullness, you're going to have to go over the line every now and then and get checked.
Exactly.
Nope. You can't do that. You can't do whatever you want to do. We're here in our sovereignty and we're going to check you. But guess what? We're not going to do there when we check you.
You're not going to shame me.
We're not going to shame you. We're going to be like, oh, there he goes. He's working it.
Right.
That was too far. All right.
And that checking is so wonderful because, again, that's where I feel loved. I feel accountable and I get to know myself more through you because you're saying, that was a little too much. Yep. And I go, oh. And then I check in with me and I go, yeah, there was something that felt off there. Huh, yeah. Okay, thanks for reeling me in.
Yep, yeah.
This is the power of a partner, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and to know that in that place where you might have stepped over the line, like, you tipped the relationship a little bit or whatever you did. I'm actually going to be grateful to you because unless we're doing that regularly, we're not going to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
So I've got to be for you in that way and have a lot of capacity to be like, wow, all right, well, you just said something that hurt, but I'm okay here. I'm going to let you know it hurt and I'm going to work it with you, but I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to keep bringing you back to 2 weeks ago when you said that thing. I'm not over it,
Yeah. Okay. So I'm hearing again a few things if I'm the smart couple. And just a smart person within a partnership is it's hard work. Mm-hmm. We're just going to get honest here. It's hard. We can't like pretend it's a fantasy. All you need to do is just this one little thing. It's hard. And it takes like a certain kind of oomph inside yourself and a willingness to like have what you want. Mm-hmm. And to me, there's, you haven't spoken to this, but there's a deserving quality that I sense a lot of people don't have, right? If I believe somewhere inside of me that I deserve, I'm willing to fight for it and advocate for myself, right? But if I don't deserve, then I might continue to abandon myself, to be okay with mediocrity, to be okay with you shitting on me or,
Yeah, that speaks to selfhood and really knowing autonomy, what I call sovereignty. That in order to have a partnership, you have to have two sovereign people, and it takes a lot to be sovereign in this culture.
Well, so, and that's and it's up to me, the sovereignty, and one of my favorite terms is self-governance.
Yes,
is I have to, in order to govern myself or be sovereign, it's a process of me and you dancing together to help me deepen into my sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because most of us grew up in families where sovereignty wasn't on the menu, and it was like, you come over here to my side or else you're not going to get love.
Yeah.
And so the self-betrayal occurs, and then we're kind of fucked, and then that's our template. And we get into partnership, and the basic operating system inside of me is abandon myself.
Yeah.
To get you to like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not sovereignty.
Yeah. It's crazy because there's two things operating. There's you've got to come. My job is to get you to come over to me, and also to abandon myself. So It's wild.
High five. Let's abandon each other, and now we're in a partnership.
Here we are. Wait, why are we not having sex anymore?
Why is this miserable?
Yeah,
actually, I'm not very happy here.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to add two things to the whole partnership cocktail. The partnership cocktail,
Please.
And is that the work actually it's actual work. It's not just like, oh, it's a lot of work. It's actually scheduling. It's prioritizing. It's, especially if we've got kids and we are parenting and we're working and we're relating, it takes like every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 2 hours in the evening, we are each other's, and we're going to work it. We're going to read some books. We're going to share with each other. We're going to get back into the bedroom. We're just going to stare at each other for a little while. We're going to schedule time to tend to this partnership.
Absolutely.
And the other thing it takes, and the other thing it takes is community. Like, you need to be going out, and I need to be going out and being with my sisters and getting a constant feedback and cocktail of femaleness and who I am and reflection from the world. And as you do out there with your brothers and with your sisters and me with my brothers, we need community in order to stay whole.
Amen. Yes.
Yeah. So
true.
Yeah, it's not necessarily true that good partners are each other's best friends, depending on how you look at what best friends means. Mm-hmm. There's a neutrality there that's actually quite damaging. So we might want to think of different ways to think of each other as partners, that we're not necessarily best friends, but we're actually partners. And that's...
And let's say a lot of people have friends out there, people have all kinds of friends, and I got 700 friends on Facebook or whatever. Woo. But you're talking about people who I can go to, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that I can go to when I'm jammed up, blaming my partner, in victim, or in wanting to run. Yeah. And I can go, hey guys, this is how I'm just in it over here, and this is how I'm seeing it. Give me some reflection. Am I crazy? What the hell? And here's the power of the bros in my life is they have held my feet to the fire so hard.
Brilliant.
With my relationship with my wife for years now, that when I come home and I tell her about the men in my life or whatever, my men's group or whoever these men have been over the years, she feels so held by them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right?
Because she knows that they have her back.
Yeah.
So people don't know, when you say community, we got to unpack it a little bit, because most people think, oh, cool, I'll go to my friends and I'll just kind of vent. And then my friends' advice is most often terrible if I haven't done a lot of work on myself. They're frapping, fixing, rescuing, advice, projecting, and they're not actually holding my feet to my highest self.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. Right. It takes a community of people doing that selfhood thing, that self-governance thing of, and also of prioritizing your partnership, of really knowing that at the hub of community, it is actually partnership. It's family. So what you're doing with your wife actually matters to me. I'm invested in it. So I give a shit. So, dude, get over yourself. Actually, you're blaming right here. And that thing you said last week or that thing that happened last year, well, here we are. So so we actually need to know that our partnerships matter, that we're doing something more than just, hey, doing a cool thing, that important things rest on it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So another example is a friend, kind of slightly distant friend, but they're struggling in their marriage, and so I get an email from the wife saying, "Hey, heads up, we're kind of in it here," which is amazing, right? And then she copies like 10 people on it, and she says, "I'm kind of in it right here, and my husband's really in it, and I'm feeling my wound here, and I know it's good for me. I'm gonna go work on that, and he's struggling a lot. Can you kind of throw him a bone or reach out to him?" And so this is an interesting situation because my style is, no, I'm not going to reach out to him.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't get or isn't willing or ready to advocate for himself when he's hurting and to go to his people. So he's got his wife doing it for him, sort of, and that's kind of one of her bad habits. And again, that's a certain stage, and that's okay. I'm not making that wrong. And where we're moving towards the sovereign place is for this man to be like, yeah, things are hard. I'm totally at my edge, and I'm help community. I just need to be seen here. I don't necessarily need advice or anything. I just need to be witnessed.
Yeah. That capacity to reach out and not to isolate is a pretty fundamental awareness of people who are on the road to wholeness, on the road to health, is knowing that they, in that moment where we want to isolate because we're ashamed or, we think we're supposed to have it all together. So the last thing we're going to do when we don't is put ourselves in, view.
Yeah.
Putting ourselves in view when we don't have our shit together, when we're hurt, when we're wounded, when we're feeling less than, that's a real sign of health.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I'm just aware of the time, and I want to start wrapping up here. Any final comments? I know you and I could go for hours here. We're just getting warmed up.
Yes.
And so I'll have you back for sure, because there are a couple things I want to dive into. I want to dive more into the sex thing, particularly as it pertains to men. I think we need to do an episode on that alone. And I could share some of my own personal journey there that I think would be really powerful. And what would you leave us with if there's a couple out there that's struggling, and then maybe you can share some of your a place to send them. But yeah, any last comments for the couple who's willing and okay, I hear you. Sounds like we can do something here. What would you say?
Wow. I think that's such a big question.
I'm just going to plug in my computer. Keep going.
Yeah. I think the first thing, the one thing that I would want to offer is start actually talking with each other. Have conversations where you're not talking at each other, but with each other. Just trying to understand what it's like to be the other person. Just one moment, have the sole purpose of that conversation, set the timer, 5 minutes each, just to get what it's like to be the other person, even if they're wrong, even if empirically what they're saying is completely wrong. Just like, wow, I get how hurt you are here. That's gotta feel awful. Wow, I get that. I get that about you.
Yeah, it seems like it's beautiful. I'm coming back to two, I would call them requirements if I'm using sort of your language, and one of them would be this generosity of spirit, and the other one would be respect, and they might, in your world, be the same thing, but I'm really feeling this, like, in order to have that conversation, I need to extend. I've got to find it in me, because that generosity lives inside of me somewhere, and I've got to find it to set the timer and to be actually curious.
Yeah, to be actually curious. Absolutely. Yeah,
beautiful.
And it's critical. Without that, it's very hard to go anywhere.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Christiane.
Oh, yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited for more with you. And as always, I just love our connection, and I love you so much.
Likewise. Mm-hmm.
Right on. So how can people learn more about you and what you're up to right now? What's alive? Tell us, what's alive, and where do you want to send folks right now?
Yeah, right now the best way to be in touch with me is through my website, ReWilding.com, for couples who are looking for support, for any extra information about anything we talked about. I'm here and available on a pretty informal basis. So That's one way. For men who are looking to really step into their stallionhood in a safe and challenging environment, my partner and I, Rensselaer Resch and I, offer a course called The Magnificent Lover. And you can just get to that by going to magnificentlover.com. And that's offered throughout the year. And any of that, and any of that, for questions and curiosity, you can just be in touch with either Rensselaer or I, or me, and we can just put you on the path.
So exciting! Thank you again for helping the people out there and the men out there.
Yeah, absolutely, it's a joy.
The kind of just a one last bonus that you get if you're going to go explore Christiane's websites is she her writing has this just an amazing flavor to it, and she writes very openly and pretty rawly about her parenting and her life and her love and nature and the wildness in her and that's in our hearts. So I strongly encourage you to check out the ReWilding blog for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Thank you again. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, Jayson.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.